You cannot afford to miss a single moment of the next hour. Get ready to have your ideas about sexuality, love, and relationships blown wide open. It's time to get educated, entertained, and enlightened, as well as sexually empowered. You have now tuned into the Tantra Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show. Now, here's your host, Tanya Diamond.
Hi, everybody. It's a beautiful Thursday here in Seattle, which I love it when it's super windy. And I was so entranced listening to my opening there, I forgot that this was my show for a minute. Who wrote that? That was great. Anyway, today I have, of course, I always have fabulous guests because that's just how I pick them. And Terry, you are on the air with me today, and I'd love you to introduce yourself to everybody and just go ahead and talk a little bit about who you are.
Oh, well, thank you, Tonya. Thank you for having me on today. This is it's always fun talking, and especially since putting out this new book, Plan B: Secrets of the Divine Feminine. That's how all this talking just started this year. But my background is not as an author, and not really talking about all the metaphysical and spiritual information out there, but started as an advertising guy. So that's a little bit different way to get into this, but how I got to this is a few years back had a nationally syndicated radio show called Shadow Worlds, where we talked to everybody in the world from the metaphysical and spiritual and biological, science community and everything. And at the very end of that 3.5-year run of that nationally syndicated show, all of these people, wonderful listeners, were calling in wanting to know about the divine feminine, the feminine energy, universal energy. You're talking about the sacred feminine. And so being really trying to be a good host, and I got all the experts in, and Sonia, how do you like that? I got Sonia out of...
Tanya.
Tanya. So, but the thing is, I was missing something. There was a book missing. There was either a page missing, something with the information these grand, wonderful people, these great experts were bringing in. And one day after I got my kids to school and kissed my wife and she went to work, I meditated as I do every morning. And all of a sudden in meditation, all these thoughts and ideas and questions were in my mind about the divine feminine and the feminine energy. And all of a sudden, I started shaking. I was sweating. I thought, I guess this is it. This is what a heart attack's like, and they're just going to find me in this chair when they come home this afternoon. And then I wasn't scared. And it was all of a sudden, I got hit with what I guess would be the best way to describe as a 300-page PDF file with all of this information that I had been asking for. And I'm sure that might seem a little strange to some of your...
Some people call that a download, huh?
It was a download. It was truly, a complete manifestation of everything I had been asking for. And some people call that a channel. I'd talked to, as you talked to so many people, I talked to different people on my radio show years ago that channel information, and I'm like, I guess this is what they had been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me 3 years to put all that, four-dimensional information together on a single flat piece of paper using 26 words, but now it's out there.
Well, it's interesting. I believe, I remember years and years ago when I was more into the whole scientific world and thought all this woo-woo stuff was, for woo-woo people.
Yeah.
When people would say things like channel and download and that, I just couldn't get it. I just didn't understand what they were really talking about. And as I became as I became present, and as it became awake in the universe, I have experienced many things like that. And I was explaining this to a friend of mine who's a professor of philosophy in Scotland, that it's not really that mystical.
No.
Because if you're connected to energy, and everything is energy, there is no such thing really as what I usually call original thought. I mean, everybody's thoughts are out there, right?
Everybody's getting the same stuff.
Right, exactly. It's all out there. We're all having thoughts. Our thoughts and intents are all out there in the energy field. And yeah, you can actually open up and experience getting information that you haven't read about in a book. And
if you read about some of the great men and women in history, they will tell you, even just, let's say, pick one, John Lennon, he was talking about, he never wrote any of the music. He was just given the music. It was just there. Einstein talks about it. Edison talks about it. All of us, every day, we're getting, you might call it your gut instinct or your feminine intuition or whatever, but we're getting all of that information. We're all getting the same stuff. It's just who chooses to, listen, take responsibility, and then take action. And it takes sometimes a lot of effort to get rid of all that crap you've piled on top of yourself, to listen to that small whispers of your soul, connected to source, telling you everything you need to know.
And it is true that when I teach my classes, I do tell people that, really you have everything you need already inside you. Everything is there. It's just a matter of sometimes you need a flashlight, and then maybe that's me at that point, to illuminate the path or a way to get there. So what I want to ask you about,
sure.
We get these words thrown around all the time, and we were talking earlier about euphemisms and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Divine feminine, divine sacred energy. I mean, of course, that's like a catchphrase.
Right.
We hear that. What the heck does that mean to you?
Well, it's what you said, which is so true from the right at the very, very beginning. And everything is energy.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that isn't energy. And the thing is that like our bodies, they did something powers these bodies. They've shown, they've put people that are literally on their deathbed and weighed them, and at the moment of death, 6 to 8 ounces leaves the body.
Yeah.
Every time. What is that? Is it your soul? Is it what? It was the energy that powered you. So as you know, everything that the car battery you have has a male and female, a plus and minus, a positive and negative, terminal on it. And it doesn't really work real well if one of those terminals is off or is calcified or not really tied down, screwed down really good. So the divine feminine, the feminine aspect of energy, is just one of the aspects of energy, and we have been so overly out of balance with the patriarchal society we've had for. Started about 5,000 years ago, but really the last 1,700 years, and things are, as you can tell, we open, you look on the tube, read the newspaper, things are not working well. From the planet is all messed up to industry and the economy and the whole world situation. It's time to get that balance back and for things to work better. So what is happening is down to this planet has been sent an extra amount of this feminine aspect of energy, which, of course, is love and sexuality and creativity and harmony and, all the things that we need to put it all back together. So that's what I was told that has been coming down for about 3 years now and is changing things.
And so when we say coming down, what's your belief? Where's it coming from? I mean, if all of energy is energy and all of energy is balanced, where does the excess feminine energy
Well, and like you said, with energy, you can't really create energy. You can't kill energy. Energy just is. But
right.
But what I got in meditation and who I feel I'm talking to, I don't say God. You might say God. I say spirit because I just think so much has been put on the word God that there's so many positive and negative things that I just call that energy that is the perfect balanced energy, spirit, is that this excess energy from the universe, from spirit, was being bathed onto this planet to give us that extra that we need to get out of this and to start listening and to balance. Or as a good friend who's a musician, which I like using now, is it's hard to balance things, but it's easy to harmonize.
Yeah, I think harmonizing is nice. I think that's a nice word for that.
I like that, and so much of it was good talking to you too. So much of this information I got at the very beginning was about sexuality, and I'm
right.
thinking, well, what does that have to do with anything? Again, it was the human side of me,
right.
and and then my background is in advertising, so I'm thinking this is unbelievable information. Now, if I put too much sexual information in there, it's going to scare a lot of women because they've been made to be in fear of their sexuality.
Right.
So I start taking it out, and my wife, Teresa, who's still in traffic, I was hoping she'd be here with us today, that, she says, well, you were given that, put it back in there, damn it. And it's like, okay.
There's the feminine talking.
Yeah, and it wasn't that she was okay with all that. She was still having to work through her issues, the same as everybody else. But now that all the women that have been reading this Plan B were like, thank you so much for not only putting in all the historical reasons why our power has been taken away from us, but also why we have to understand the power of our sexuality that is just the opposite of everything we've been told.
Well, it was interesting. I had a student of mine that was asking, I asked him to do an exercise for me, and I said, write down what you think an empowered man looks like, or if you've seen examples, and an empowered woman. And he sat down and he thought about it, then he emailed me, and he said, Jean-Luc Picard from The Next Generation was an empowered man. And I said, I can buy that.
I'm a Captain Kirk guy.
Right, yeah. I mean, a little weak. Well, Captain Kirk has all the sex that John Picard was missing. So if you combine the two, you probably have the perfect, empowered man.
I agree.
And I thought, that was a great one. And then he said for the woman, now granted, this man had spent like 7 hours with me. Okay. And for the woman, he said, I don't think I've ever seen one. Oh. And I had to start laughing, and I said, you're right, you wouldn't. He said, I wouldn't know one, I don't think I've ever seen one. I probably wouldn't know one if I found one. And I said, well, you're right about that, because you spent 7 hours in front of one. I said, an empowered woman is a woman that almost all women respect and all men are afraid of.
True.
And he started laughing. He goes, why would that be? And I said, because a woman that's empowered in her sexuality is very, very frightening to most men.
I've found that, and as the women that I've talked to start really understanding their true sexuality, the true nature of it, you talk about the energy that can be built and use that for manifestation or for health or for so many things. I'm sure, and I know you know so much about. It scares guys, and that is one of the reasons why it scared the men. 2,000 years ago, that decided that we need to bury this and make sure women don't remember this.
Well, I mean, if you think about the fact that when a woman's sexuality is about, creation of the universe.
Right.
And if she stands in that power, that's, when we talk about, and I want to be clear to the people that are listening, that a woman in her sexual energy is not a woman that is promiscuous. We're not talking about some woman that's got it all hanging out and running around and oozing on other people. And I run into that in a lot of workshops where, they're supposedly the goddess energy empowering women in their sexuality. And you get all these women that are kind of oozing. And that is not what we're talking about.
No, I agree with you.
An empowered woman is dynamic. It's like if you think of Tony Robbins, who's an incredibly dynamic speaker and man, but yet give him the feminine aspect of a woman that loves sex and loves men, without the oozing.
And loves herself. I mean, that's the first thing, is that love of self, because, you can't really give it to anybody if you don't have it yourself.
Exactly. And loving self also means loving that incredible sexual energy that makes us, gives us that feminine aspect. And I mean, these, the concepts are hard for a lot of people to grasp. I know that, Healing 101 and spirituality and all these manuals give people these terms like present, awake, consciousness, feminine energy, all this. Yeah. And a lot of people are just really confused. I see them throw the words around, and I just see a lot of confusion about what that really means.
Well, I think one of the things I found when talking to so many people through the years, like you, that, have different books and different courses and different all these things, everybody's trying, it's really simple. Humans, we make things difficult, and we're always looking for somebody else. Still, I don't care how awake and alive and in tune you are, you're still, unfortunately, looking for somebody else to give it to you. So many people try to put their brand on just the simplest thing, and so it does confuse it, and it does. But the simplest thing is just what you said, is giving it to yourself and understanding. But first of all, understanding what that self is. And you talked about the women that are just oozing sexuality. Again, they're using it how they think they have to by what male standards have told them they have to use it. Not finding out how they themselves should use it by listening to themselves. And that's part of what I try to do, too, is just start listening to yourself and understanding that's the core of what you need.
So you're a man
Yes.
that was channeled information about the divine feminine.
Isn't that strange?
It's great.
I just, that was the first thing that everybody said, wait a minute, I thought Terry was a girl. I said, well, no, it's Terry with a Y, not an I, It was but I asked that same question. I said, why did you give this to me? I'm 6'6", 250 pounds, a big guy, but I think one of the things, I said, what makes me so special? And what Spirit said is, well, you are special, just as special as everybody else. And but I think what helped me to understand or to be receptive, not only all the things that I was learning on that radio show for all those years, but also that being a creative person, from the moment I was born and could hold a crayon, I could draw a pretty good Sistine Chapel. It was just it was a gift of that creativity. Well, that, as you know, the creative side is the feminine side. Yes. And then again, so I'm very in tune to that. But then again, I live with my wife, 2 daughters, and both cats and dogs are women. So
a lot of feminine energy around you.
Yeah, so I've had to really deal with that. So it was all perfect for me to be able to, I was not scared of sexuality. I was not scared of creativity. I was not scared of feeling and instinct and intuition, all those things that are the, whether you want to call the goddess energy, the feminine energy. So when this came down to me, I still fought it. I've got to tell you, it took me 3 years, and as I was putting this information down that I know now is helping so many people, but I was like, heck with this, I'm not doing this anymore. And Spirit would say to me, this is for Teresa, my wife. Well, okay. Darn it. Yeah. Okay, I got to go back to doing it. If it's for Teresa, I got to do it. Yeah. So it was a long process of learning, and the two things that I think is the most important thing that I learned that everybody else has to learn is that to get rid of all fear and judgment, and that's not of other people, just other people, but of self. And as soon as you do that, then it all came together for me personally. Well,
I mean, really, the bottom line for anything to me is getting rid of. And when we say getting rid of fear, it's not. I mean, there's the part of fear that's super helpful, and that's the intuition, knowing that you've just walked into a bad space with somebody dangerous and you need to move. You don't want to get rid of that kind of fear, but that kind of fear that keeps us in a constant contraction is really pervasive. And quite frankly, it's the thing that I work on the most when I'm helping people out of being stuck. It's always comes down to the fear. If you can get rid of that contraction, you can do anything. That's my bottom line.
Well, when you're working with people, do you find, as I found, that when you work with everybody that is really taking the time to quiet that chatter, learning how to meditate, learning how to really listen to their own guidance, and they start really getting through all that junk and starting to listen, and they're getting all that information a lot clearer, but the fear of judgment, I'll say put them both together, is still there, because I'll ask somebody and they say, well, yes, I know what I should do. I really know who I am, my true sexuality, everything, but what would they think? Yeah. And the fear of they being, whether it's the people that are in their the other soccer moms, the friends, the the church, the business partners. Goodness, if I really came out and was my real, true, authentic self, what would they think? And that they is keeping them away from doing it.
Well, that's our rocking the boat mentality. I remember my mother, certainly when I was growing up, she both empowered me and also tried to squish me. And it was a weird experience because my mother sensed that there was something really big there, but she also sensed that being that big would also ostracize me and that it would make my life a little bit lonelier. And I have to say, before the movie The Secret came out, and what the bleep do we know, it was true. I mean, I was one of those people that people always thought, oh, yeah, she's harmless enough. She's a little kooky, She has some flighty, weird, strange ideas. But she seems, her heart's in the right place. And now people, call me up and go, oh, my God, you all these years, look at the movie, The Secret. And I have something exciting to share. There's recently I've been in contact with a man, Dan Brule, who is he's a conscious breath worker who way back has studied with some of the top people in the world as far as working with breath. And he is in a movie. He was being interviewed in a movie that James Sinclair put out called What If the Movie.
Oh.
And What If the Movie .tv, I believe, is where the trailer is. It's about to come out. Is talking about, you're going to love this. This is amazing. How, our DNA isn't genetic. It's our emotions. And so we think that DNA is driving everything in our bodies, and it's not. And this is going to be some more blowaway stuff that's really going to open a lot of people's eyes up.
I've been talking to some people too that have been working with the DNA for a long time, and there is a thing called the phantom DNA. Have you heard about that?
Tell us.
It's a scientific fact. They weren't sure what it is. It's almost it has been proven and documented. They've been working on it now that it's almost like that shadow right next to the DNA of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that? And I ask one day in meditation, as I do. Sometimes I get information, but it's that so we work so hard and stay so long in being a human being, and that is the main DNA that makes up the human side of us. But if we can actually get in touch with the human being side of us, just the being side, that is that standing next to each other is the shadow part of us that works together, that harmony, but we stay so hard into the human side that's where everything gets such a mess.
Well, that's our kind of frantic lifestyle, running around and not really living in a lot of pleasure. I mean, most people don't live in pleasure, and that's the feminine aspect right there.
Well, it is. We were taught a long time ago when it was the matriarchal society for 35,000 years or more, when we lived in love and sexuality and creativity and spontaneity, and then all of a sudden this new thing, man-made dichotomies came. Then it was like mind was separated from matter, soul from body, intellect from intuition, reason from instinct. Then things started messing up, So it's, part of the thing was love of self, then was replaced with fear of self. Sexual feelings of passion were things to battle against now for the sake of your soul. I mean, these are new ideas, and we need to go back to what was truly part of life since the beginning of time.
Now, we are not dissing men here, right?
No. Not at all.
Yeah, because some
I am one. I can't do that.
Well, because sometimes I know that when I've said to a partner that they, if they surrendered a little bit and surrendered to the goddess, and of course that raises the hackles immediately. Surrender to the goddess is somehow demeaning or somehow lessening themselves, and what I'm actually telling them to do is to let go of some of the warring, and let go of some of the control, the contrived control that isn't actually true. It's an illusion.
Right. And
sink and melt into an experience is really what I say. What I mean when I'm saying surrender to the goddess.
I love talking to you. You just have such a great blend of everything. It's the thing is that so many males and females, men and women, forget that we have both male and female. We have both the same hormones. Every baby starts out as a female, until that last little bit when some of the testosterone kicks in and out pops a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
So we, just look at the proof of that. I look down here, I have these nipples here. Like, why in the world do I have those? Well, they could have changed into something else. That's still from left over from in the womb, that we all start as females. So
extension of the heart chakra there, by the way, right?
Yes. Boy, oh boy, I like talking to you. We could talk all day long.
So we don't want to diss men. This is not about dissing men. And quite frankly, we also want to help those women, and I was one of them, that believed that being more like a man, so bringing out all my male energy made me more credible. My father was an extremely powerful man in the world, and I wanted to emulate him. because I thought that's where the power was. And so, walked like him, commanded a room like him. And in a sense, I became weaker in that way. And I remember a gentleman once telling me so long ago, he said, that if you were to just let go a little bit,
right,
just let go of some of that, and you would actually be stronger because you would be able to bend like the willow. And I thought about that, because I was like, I'm the oak tree.
Oak trees will break.
Right, and I'm completely formidable. Martial arts, background. I jump out of airplanes, fly helicopters, competitive bodybuilder, just yanged out the yin yang, so to speak.
Yeah, I like that.
And I realized that, it was, I didn't really come from a place of power in that. I actually came from a place of contrived control and having to, hang on and close and contract to stay in that space. And
you brought out both spectrums. You're talking about one end of the spectrum that the mind tells you need to be in there to be in control and be as good as men and equal to men. And here you talked at first about the way that you fall into the other end of the spectrum. Again, that you have to be overly sexy and just falling out of your clothes and
right.
oozing. And, again, you fall into exactly what the patriarchal society would like you to, and both are truly not empowered.
Right. They're not in the middle. And I know I've come a long way since then because recently at a workshop I had a man who's studied with the mentor of Harv Eker, and these guys tell me, when I watched you speak, you were completely dynamic and strong, and yet you were a woman completely in her feminine energy. And I thought, wow, what an amazing compliment.
That is a beautiful compliment.
To just, he said, I felt you touch the men, and I felt you touch the women, and I felt that there was a balance, that complete balance there that everybody got.
Well, you're living from your heart now. See, that's right. What before you were living in your mind.
Right.
What you felt you had to, what society made you do, what you had to do to compete in society. And you were able to move then down into your heart where, that's the only, from the heart is where all the power is.
Exactly. Well, and I tend to think of it as we're so compartmentalized. When I lived in my head before, it was all about intellect and that. Then I lived for a long time, I lived just in my crotch.
Yeah.
And that was that kind of oozing, type of thing. So, I understand all of these. I feel like I've integrated these. Right. I've made a complete being because we have all that, right? We've got the sex and the power and the tribe and our heart and our truth and our enlightenment. But if we're just trying to live in one aspect, we're not a dynamic, empowered being.
And that's what, society, everything in society is made to keep you off balance, and just everything, and I'm sure you've talked about this before too. Everything that you turn on the news, you turn on you read any kind of newspaper, everything, and it's just fear-based, most of it, and
right.
It keeps you off balance. And as you know, when the body is in fear, you just can't find that center. You just can't get that balance.
Well, we're in contraction and nothing's moving.
Right.
So, Terry,
yeah.
We are going to take a quick little break here for everybody, and we'll be back in just a moment to continue talking, all right? Excellent. Okay.
Hi, this is Dr. Wayne Dyer, and you're listening to Contact Radio.
Is your sex life non-existent? Do sexual dysfunctions leave you soft? Is internet porn getting more than you are? Or are you paying more attention to porn than your partner? Have you tried talk therapy and it got you nowhere? You are not alone. You can be freed from sexual shame, guilt, and dissatisfaction. A visit to the Tantra teacher is in order. Call now and mention you heard the Tantra teacher on the radio and get a very special offer. Stop waiting for a miracle and call right now. 206-276-2735. Phone consultations or in person will get you the information you need to be successful in your love life. But you have to call now. 206-276-2735. Stop making excuses. Call the Tantra teacher. 206-276-2735.
ContactTalkRadio.com, making a difference. And leading the way.
They know what they're doing.
We're back, everybody, having a fabulous conversation that's ranging from love, Tantra, sex, intimacy. Hey, wow, that's the name of the show. What do you know? From all of those things. Hi, Terry, you're back. We're back here. And you were just talking about a book. Let's talk a little bit, give people some recommendations on that book that you were talking about just a second.
Oh, it was one of the things that really, as I was doing that show years ago, and talking to so many different people from so many different, from the scientific to the metaphysical to the spiritual.
You had big names. You had Wayne Dyer.
Oh, yeah. Wayne Dyer was on there. Brian Weiss was there. We were talking about past lives. We had, Buddhist monks, Wiccan priestesses. We did, it was one of those things of putting all this really empowering information out there. Just good, positive stuff. And boy, oh boy, one day I said, I told Teresa, my wife, I said, I need to learn about quantum physics. And she said, what in quantum what? And I said, well, I don't know. That's why I need to learn. And so, 2 days later, I go out, and there's always boxes from different publishers that wanted their authors on the show. And there's this little box from a publisher I'd never worked with before, and in it was a book by a lady by the name of Lynn McTaggart, and it was called The Field. And it was, here's a writer. She was a medical writer working for all the big medical journals and everything, and she was doing an article on homeopathy, and in her research she heard something about quantum physics. Well, she didn't know what it was either. She took a right turn, went into the world of 60 years of what had been going on with quantum physics, and it will, anybody that's listening that is just starting to, besides getting Plan B, my book, this book will answer so many questions, some of the questions you don't even know you had, where quantum physics has proved metaphysics, that we talked about it very early on in this conversation here this afternoon, about that we are all connected. We are all getting the same stuff. And science 60 years ago proved this is true.
Yeah, so it's bringing all of us supposedly freaky people out into the realm now where people like Oprah want to talk to us and say, "Wow, how did you know this? How did you get this?" Well, this also explains, of course, I used to be considered somebody that could talk to animals. Now, I never came out of the closet with that because I was going to be a neurosurgeon.
Well, you did now.
Yeah, I know. It's out.
Okay.
And I was going to be a neurosurgeon. Science was my religion, and forget about all the rest of this stuff. But it was clear to everybody around me that there was something going on between animals and I. And I would sit on a bench, and the next thing there was 6 lizards all camped out on me.
Oh, my God.
And things like that, parrots just alighting, but that whole thing where animals just seem to come there. And I actually made a living for quite a while as an animal behaviorist and working with that type of thing. So animals have been some of my better teachers because when I worked with animals, I didn't have to explain any of it.
Right.
This whole energy connection. I learned about energy from animals because if I'd walk up to work on a horse and I had too much yang energy, I had all this male, like, I'm going to do something to you energy, I'm going to fix you, right?
Right.
If I walked up to a horse that had a problem like that, the horse would not let me touch them. And I realized, if I was in that space, I'd have to back up about a foot. And if I backed up a foot and just held my hands out and did the same work without touching the horse would relax. And they would chew, and they would go through all this. And this was, I've been a skeptic about this stuff my whole life because my mother had a history of mental illness. And so I believed, wow, if I believe this stuff, there must be something wrong with me. Oh. And yet I experimented with it on animals, and you could just watch them. There's no placebo effect there. They don't know what I'm trying to do. They're just responding.
Well, it's just, that is unconditional love. It's just, I talked to, there's a gentleman, I'll give you his information, Wyatt Webb, who's the horse whisperer, and he's a fabulous person. He works at Marival, working with people and horses to get to understand what you now understand. But a friend of mine once said, talking about unconditional love, if you want to find out who your best friend is, take your wife your child and your dog and lock them in the trunk of your car for about an hour. Then come back an hour later, open up the trunk, and who's happy to see you?
The dog, yeah.
The dog. That's it.
Right.
That's unconditional love.
Right. But yeah, nobody else is going to be happy. We're not suggesting in any way, nor the station, that you lock anybody in the trunk of the car.
No. Well, I when you're talking about animals, this might get very, very quickly. I was years ago out working, doing some advertising, and Tippi Hedren, from the Birds.
Yes.
And Marnie and Melanie Griffin's mom, she owned the studio, and I was so lucky to spend a weekend out at her place where she had over 135 lions and tigers and leopards and everything. And they were working with what you were talking about, especially with the felines, these big cats, that they knew what they were thinking. They knew, I'll have to tell you sometime when we have more time, some of the stories that were just blow your mind that they were working on. I got to see that. But, truly that interaction that is nonverbal with those animals.
Yes. And, so here how you can tie this back into sex, because I, of course, bring everything back to sex. That's what I do. Is that if we actually spent the time, there's this whole thing like men always say, I can't read her mind. And it's true. You can't read her mind. But what you could do is become, in the sense, present and take a step back and come out of the male energy of just taking.
Right.
And sit back and see what happens when you experience light touch and when both of you start to breathe together, because that's the one thing that happens. These people that communicate with animals, you're not dealing with ego. All right. And so what happens with people is that you're dealing with ego and fear. People are afraid when they get into the bedroom or into intimacy, something's going to go wrong. I'm not going to get a need met. I'm not going to perform well.
Performance. You hit the key right there. Everything is performance-based.
Right. And so if you do that, you're going to go to a fear place. You're going to go to your head, and you will not be able to communicate in that way. So, maybe practice petting your cat. And if your cats really like it when you pet them about probably like a half an inch to an inch away, depending on how much you emit energy.
Now, this is not a euphemism you were talking about.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about the real cat. But you know what? If you learn to touch a woman the way you can touch your cat, you probably will get the same response.
She will be purring. Okay.
That's right, exactly. You see, and I was talking about how I never use euphemisms, and here I am being coy.
You're being very coy.
Terry, you're bringing the coy out in me, I guess.
I don't want to do that. Here, I'll get right into the sexual stuff.
So we could learn to touch our partners. I teach a thing called the glide. And I tell men that before you touch a woman, you're actually touching, before you touch her physically, you're touching her energetically from probably about 6 inches to a foot away. Mm. And if you set your intent before you even touch her and glide into her energy with that intent, she'll know what's going on.
I like that.
Yeah, but it's not what we do generally, right? We just kind of touch people. We don't have a whole intent behind it. We just like reach over. I mean, the intent might be I'm going to tweak your nipple.
Right.
I'm going to grab your crotch. But the intent isn't actually, Gary's going, But there isn't an intent of, I want to send you love and warmth first.
No.
I want to connect to my heart. I want to put my heart in my hands before I even touch you. And
this
show
is a
you
machine.
Just
you have the dials and things, and you push this button and twist this, and it's so much more than that. Yes, you're teaching exactly right.
And so I think that's part of what the divine feminine can teach, is that aspect of becoming in sync with your body and in sync with the energy, instead of being driven by expelling energy outward, more like melting into the energy.
Well, and learning to breathe, like you said. I mean, we are in this society where we have these short, quick little breaths. We don't get enough. It's just learning to just breathe. And part of what we're talking about here, that vibration of the higher levels of this divine feminine energy, that the higher levels are brought about by the higher feminine emotions, and particularly what we're talking about too is sexual emotions. But this higher level, especially women can create, then will transmute those lower human physical energies into higher spiritual energies. This is where women are starting to realize that they can use those energies, and if a man can work in, forget about the performance and step into that energy of love and just be a part of that. It is a part of a male too. oh my gosh, talk about the manifestation of things. And
well, you
help.
know, I think men are afraid. I mean, when I talk to men about this, they go, "Yeah, but come on, what's in it for me?" You know, basically, I want my erection. I want to be inside of somebody. I want to have that word that I can't use on the radio that starts with an eject, and then I bleeped to myself, and I want to get off, and so all this stuff sounds like romance and time, and what's up with that?
Well, and what again, it's a performance. It's a male based. It's for the man to get off and then get on with it, and and women again have, well, I guess that's what it is, and so many women report that they have much sexual dysfunction. Well, there is no such. I don't think there's truly what there is.
Thank you. 76% right now of women are reporting sexual dysfunction. 58% of women are not even quote unquote interested in sex.
And how many are really reporting orgasms?
Right, not very many. And see, I think we're limited here, and I've talked about this. Most people are having procreational sex, which is just genital friction. They're having tension release orgasm, which actually isn't what we were designed to have as far as orgasm. I mean, when a man gets off, he is actually just sowing his seed. Right. And there's some studies. I don't know if you've ever read Between the Sheets, but it's a great book on and this is an offensive topic for a lot of people, but on the violence of ejaculation. I said that word.
Oh, and I've read some things about that.
Right, and that's not meaning that men are violent. That's not what that means. But there's an act, and so when we actually get to a point where we can, instead of striving for that tension release orgasm, we can relax into the feminine. And I tell women this. You create the universe in your body. Right. There's a time to be empowered with that, and when you join with a man, which we need to do, I believe that male and femme is important. But creating that intent of creation of the universe, melting into the experience of bliss and arousal that goes through your whole body instead of just generated in tension from your genitals, it's a very different experience. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, Terry, but that's what I teach. That's what Tantra really is about in sex.
I realized what was so wonderful with what you teach when I was getting all of that information from Spirit to write Plan B. As I had to then do my research. Okay, here's what I was told.
Right.
Here's what.
What does it mean?
And I did do a lot of, okay, let's try this. But it was a lot of, really looking and studying and looking through these different archives and the Tantra. So much of it was what I was hearing. I didn't know that it was really categorized under that.
Right.
But I was so excited when I started really researching and reading and learning more about Tantra.
And not the neo tantra, not just this is the massage technique for the man, and but you're talking about the connection, the soul connection.
And yes, and women to really, how many of these women truly that are reporting supposed dysfunction really understand where their body, how to use their body, what feels good to them, what touches, what can they do to arouse themselves to the highest limits. And if they don't even know themselves, how can they expect anybody else to give to them? Right.
Well, I tell women need to be accountable. I say all the time, if you're not having the sex life you want, that is your fault.
No. Well, you're not supposed to. You're taught as a little girl, don't touch that body part. That's bad if you touch that.
Right. Right. Well, and it's not just that body part, because women, when they're having sexual tension release orgasm, are focused all on the clitoris and being in tension, and just that kind of hard manic energy is not really what you can do. Where, even the simple exercise of having your partner just hold your yoni, and that's the vagina, statically, just put a hand over and hold in stillness. There are some amazing things that happen. We're going for bigger and bigger highs all the time in the society. We want harder, bigger, more emotion, more feeling. And what we've forgotten is that in the subtlety, when you bring everything back to stillness and subtlety, that's where you feel things bigger.
That's where, I think truly all these, you hear these great things throughout history, these wonderful proverbs, these world universal truths that I still think my top one is keep it simple, stupid.
It's the simplest
things. Like you just said, that connection, that transfer of energy, that intention of loving energy and that connection, oh my gosh, it will take you to places where you never thought you could go, and it opens up that center, that heart. That now it isn't just let's just all this friction and get off and okay, let's make dinner now or go off.
Yeah, button pushing sex, check that box, we're okay.
Yeah, it's my goodness, the simplest things, just taking that little extra time will create so much more, and it is. It's so wonderful, and
so Terry,
you
and I have not, like a lot of my guests, we just talk. I mean, for a few minutes before to say, okay, yeah, we're just going to get on there and then jump on the radio and just have these conversations. I haven't read your book. You haven't. You've seen my website, but you don't. Not a lot of stuff there. And so this is us exploring each other as well. We're having a tantric experience on the radio.
It is. I can't wait to learn more. And it's so nice to make these connections. And it's wonderful if everybody out there, you will find these connections you make that we just started talking. We didn't know how much we have in common and what we're thinking and helping and doing so much of the same thing in our own ways, but really be open to every day these connections that you make. And it isn't just by accident. There are no accidents, I truly believe now. There are no just accidents and stuff. It's just things happen for a reason, and you just need to be open to it.
Well, I liken it to that there's doors opening and closing around us all the time.
Right.
And if we are asleep and we're not paying attention, we miss the lessons and the opportunities, and then they have to get louder. So generally, I'm pretty thick-headed in a lot of things, and the universe has had to slam me upside the head. My biggest one was a head injury in 1991, and literally a head injury, and that was perfect because I was so in my brain and so in my intellect that it really took knocking the sense out of me for a while for me to become body aware again.
Well, that happens to so many people. There was a woman that came up to a book signing the other day. I was at Borders, and she comes up and says, "Oh, I got to get your book." And I had the greatest year this year. I go, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, I got hit by a car." And
right.
I knew where she was going.
Right.
I just knew because how many people that every moment of every day, spirit's guidance, that gut instinct, that soul guidance of yours, are nice little whispers, but. What's it going to take? Every so often there's a little, if you're not getting the whispers, Spirit's going to, tap your shoulder, then, kind of hit your shoulder, then smack you in the butt, and then pretty soon that cosmic 2x4, which you got, it sounds like.
I did in a big way. It befuddled me. I actually lost, I went from a fairly high intellect to the inability to actually remember when I was walking to a store what I could do.
Oh.
And it was so humbling. It left me in a completely vulnerable state where I had to rely on my other bodily sensations and functions to navigate. And in that way, it was perfect because all of a sudden I had to stop. I had to slow down. I had to feel and look around to figure out what was going on instead of thinking about it all the time.
Now, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you're supposed to be the one interviewing.
No, we're just having a conversation.
I've had this conversation with people before. Do you truly believe, well, I'm sure it was a wonderful thing that happened because look at what all came out of it, but
right.
Do you truly believe that some people have to get that hit over the head, or can you and I and others like us help people by talking to them, teaching them, doing these workshops, writing books, help them to not have to have that smack?
Yeah, I don't think we actually need to go through that kind of trauma. I think that basically we are waking up. I think more and more people are waking up, and more people are becoming open to these issues that we're talking about. And I think I needed a fast wake up call. Yeah. And I think I just wasn't, I was on the very wrong path. And I know that my life's mission was just fading away from me. And I needed that kind of abruptness to recenter. But I don't believe that everybody needs to go through that, certainly.
I hope not. That's my stance is that whatever I can do to help people not get hit by that car and whatever. I had a similar thing, but it wasn't a physical. I mean, being in business for years and advertising and doing exceptionally well in the business world, and then all of a sudden I had to shut down 3 companies. And I had never been in lack in my life. I had never been unempowered in my life. I had never been depressed in my life. I had no passion for people that were depressed. It's like, damn it, get up, stand up, quit shuffling around, stand up straight, and what's wrong with you? Just and very, very, very quickly I learned what compassion for people that were down. There were days that I felt that. I mean, there was. Now I making an exceptional living, having everything in the world you think is going to make you happy and wonderful in America, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about how to pay bills. And I had to learn lack. I had to learn compassion. And then I was able to understand this information that I was given and learn how to truly understand what people need to learn to hear again. And so yeah, I got hit myself. Thank goodness it wasn't wasn't a physical thing.
Whether it's physical or mental, I think that most of us are so in our heads and not in our bodies that sometimes that needs to happen. I'd like it to not happen. We've got just a few minutes left here.
Okay.
Terry, what I'd like you to do is first of all, fascinating. I've loved, of course, I'm going to read your book, and we're going to talk a lot more, and
I can't
definitely
wait.
have you back. But go ahead and give us your full name, your website, the where we can find your book. Go ahead and lay that on us.
This has been, thank you so much. This has been a fun time. This hour went by so darn fast.
Everybody says that.
We will talk more. I will make sure that it's so. But it's Plan B, Secrets of the Divine Feminine, and it's 300 pages, $14.95. It's the first of 3 books. There will be Book 1, Ascension Level 1 is what this is, then Book 2 and Book 3. And you can go to my website. That's the best place to get it. It's put those W's in front of there, and it's gotoplanb.com. So it's GOTOPLANBE. So B is spelled B-E. Gotoplanb.com. Right there on the first page, there's a little banner that says click here. It'll go right to Author House, and there it is. And here's another thing. Anybody buying it this year, and my email's in the back of there, send me an email, and I will do a free 15-minute Akashic Records reading. How about that?
Well, that's super cool. That'll be fun. I have no idea. Yeah, I've heard of Akashic Records, and I'm sure there's people out there that are going like, what? But hey, this is what I tell you. Curious people that are willing, listen, this was an opportunity you heard. People that are willing to open up and jump out there and do something, whether they know about it or not, those are the people going somewhere. If you have to get in your brain and have all sorts of information before you do it, you're not going to do it. So I'm just saying, go get the book. Go to Plan B, B-E, that's a B-E, and get that book. Yes, and I have loved talking to you, and we're going to do more of that for sure. I have workshops coming up, of course. Tantra, we talked about Tantra speed dating was super successful in Seattle. We're heading to Vancouver to try it out, up to Vancouver for the multi-orgasmic man, and one of my sexual healing classes. My big couples Tantra and Sexual Empowerment Weekend coming up in February in the Sunshine Coast, along with my couples intimacy retreat in March. I'm going to be sending those emails out very soon. They will fill up very fast. So if you're hearing me now and you're interested, you need to get there now before they end up going out to all my affiliates who have hundreds of people that want to jump on board. Just finished my men's premature ejaculation. You've been lied to about premature ejaculation ebook, and that's going to be on my site very soon. And happy to say that my little thing that I went through last week has become good. Lots of emails people are sending me with lots of, I've been through some court stuff, and it's all good. So life is fabulous. Life is wonderful. Get out there. Get to Terry. Terry, did you tell us your last name?
Oh, Hinkle. There we go. Terry Hinkle. Hinkle. Terry Hinkle. Go to Plan B. There we go.
There we go. And Terry Hinkle is going to be back with us again. And I don't know what we'll talk about next time, but I'm sure it'll be fabulous. Thanksgiving coming up. Happy Thanksgiving, and save a turkey is what I'm saying to everybody this year, that I've gone raw, so save a turkey.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Get to my Tantra site, learningtantra.com, and get your free ebook if you haven't done that. And I believe that we have pretty well yacked about as much as we're going to yak today. Thank you so much, Terry. Loved having you here. and see everybody soon.
Talk to you later.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Tantra, Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show with your host, Tanya Diamond. Don't miss next week's show at Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, visit our website at www.tanyadiamond.com. That's TANJA for more information on workshops and classes.